So here they are out of the light, and I messed up. So this one turned out really, really good. So did this one. But on these three, I got to playing too much with the matte top, spreading it around, and it started affecting the foil and messed up and blurred out all my designs. So I am going to do them again, I guess, because that's what ends up happening when I do nails. I mess things up and I have to do things all over again. Well, hello there. I am excited to be bringing you the Lobe collection from Fiote. I picked up this beauty at the Fiote Nail Supply Shop here in Canada. As you can see, the collection comes with an art display book. It's just empty for putting your art tips into, I would assume. All right, so here's the collection. It's a 9-piece set. I've got my swatches here all ready to go. I'll pop these out and we can get started having a look. All right, so this is a premium Korean gel brand. This collection has 8 syrup gel colors, and then this one interesting funky texture color, which will be cool to check out. Let's see what that's all about. I'll be doing swatches for all of them, and then at the end I should put together a bit of a nail set. Let's see how that turns out. Let's get started and swatch these up to see what they're like. This texture gel is really cool. I love the effect that it gives, and I'd be all for getting an entire collection in different colors like this. I'm a big fan of this one, and I think it'll be easy to use in all kinds of different sets. So here they are, all swatched with both glossy and matte. I have got to say, I am obsessed with this collection. I absolutely loved how easily it applied, how beautifully it leveled. The formula is just amazing, and the consistency is fantastic. The colors are gorgeous too. So even though this is really in the higher end price point when it comes to Korean gels from what I was looking at, I wouldn't necessarily object to paying the extra price if all the colors were this nice and all the formulas were this great. I might actually be down for that. So I have this beautiful foil that I found that is going to match these colors just perfectly. So I'm going to use them to make a set of press-ons. So let's see how this turns out. I don't have any solid ideas yet, but I'm sure I'll figure out something cool. As always, I start off my tips with a tip prep and a primer so that their polishes are going to stick quite well. And I'm going to go in with my Fiote syrup gels and just get started. On this video, I'm going to do my first attempt of not moving my nails around while I'm doing a video, and of doing all the nails together at the same time, because typically I work on one nail at a time and have to edit and shift things around, and it makes for a lot of editing work, and I do go out of focus a lot when I'm working because I hold on to the nail and kind of move it around as I go, which does make it easier for me to paint and do what I'm doing. But on the editing side, it makes a lot more work for me. So I'm going to try this out and see if I can get a little better at staying in frame and keeping still in one place. Doing an entire set. What happens is I typically don't know what I'm doing with all the nails until I'm, starting and getting kind of idea from one nail. That leads me to the next nail. That leads me to the next one. So I very often start out that way, and my design just kind of comes together as I go. But I'm starting this trial thing with a very simple set of nails, where all I'm going to do is play with some color and put down a pretty foil and see how that turns out. 3 solid nails, and then I'm going to do marble on the last ones. Oop, there I go, trying to take it off. Okay, let's see. I'm going to have to try and be careful not to actually mix the colors into each other until they disappear, because with this type of syrupy gel, that's really easy to do accidentally, because they do blend so beautifully to each other. You can end up turning it into one blobby color as opposed to a nice marble mix. I'm also trying to adjust with my new phone with the camera setting, because it tends to go out of focus a lot on me, which is not very fun. It focuses on the brush right in front of the lens as opposed to the work I'm doing. So at this point, I would have been a whole lot better off if I had just been using the brush from the polish bottles and putting it on there in a thinner coat. It would have been a lot easier and taken a whole lot less time than me dicking around with the ombre brush here. I'm just going to take a look at these and make sure, going this way, that I got proper coverage. Yeah, I missed a couple of spots, so I'll fix that up. Here they are out of the light. Going in with a second coat. These syrup gels are just so exquisitely beautiful. One of the really interesting things I've been noticing using really good syrup gels is when you pull the brush out of the bottle, it pulls like a string along with it. And so you have a tendency to be kind of chasing a little string of polish around, and it only seems to be happening with syrup polishes that I've noticed. So it must be something about the consistency of them. So finally, as I'm getting finished here, doing my second coat, it occurred to me, oh, maybe I should just use the polish brush and that might work quicker and easier. And of course, yeah, I did. That was the way to go. So I did go back in with my ombre brush here just to kind of smooth the colors into each other so there wasn't a harsh transition line and just make them blend nicer. And then I threw some polish with the brush onto my other nail here. And then I grabbed up my ombre brush and just kind of blended them again nicely on the edges together to make quick work of that, which is what I should have done in the first place on the first coat. All right, I'm going to check them out, make sure everything's coated nice, and pop them in the lamp. So I've got two different transfer foil gels. I usually use the Macart. This Vanillisa, I don't know where it came from. I don't know what I have it from, but seeing as how I have the two of them, I am going to try each one on different nails and see if there's much of a difference when I do them. So I know the Macart works really well. I'm going to do these three nails with that one, and I'm going to do the Vanillisa on the last two. And I'm going to coat the whole nail because I'm not quite sure what foil pieces I'm going to use. Haven't really decided yet, so we'll coat the whole thing and then play around with it and decide where everything's going. The Vanillisa is much thicker. It has a sweet, almost like bubblegum smell to it. Okay, and pop them into cure. So these are out of the light. You can see my pinky did end up kind of blurring the colors a little bit. So maybe using these syrup gels to do a marble wasn't the best idea because they do just kind of blend together. They're tricky to see the marble, but that's okay. We'll just move on. The most important thing when using transfer foil gel is to let it cool. When it comes out of the lamp, give it a few minutes to cool down. It starts creating that tacky surface. If you go in there straight up out of the light, you are going to find that your foils just slide around on this very slippery surface. So you have to give it time to cool down and start creating that tacky, sticky layer on it that you want for putting down your foils. So it's a good time to let them just sit there cooling and take a look at your foils and kind of get an idea of where you're going to lay things down and how they're going to end up looking. So I'm hoping we're ready now. And I'm probably going to have to do this nail by nail. So I'm going to go in first here with my thumbnail. And a lot of times if you're doing a full cover foil, it's a good idea to cut strips off while you're working with it. I'm going to attempt to do this without cutting because I'm just using pieces. You can see it's a lot of clear around there. So we'll just see how this works out. I'm going to put this right on the corner. I'm just pushing down with my fingers to get it into place. You can see it's starting to get a few creases. So I'm going to snag up my super handy adorable tweezers. I really like this fixed end. It's nice and firm. I do have silicone tools, but, well, this is a silicone tool, but I find this one's nice and firm. Works really well for fixing. You're just giving it really good pressure. Really, really, really good pressure. Okay. and just lifting carefully to make sure everything's where it needs to be. Going back in with some more pressure on anything that's not sticking perfectly. And voila! That turned out quite lovely. All right, on to the next ones. So full transparency, I edited out probably, 10 minutes of me just shifting it around and around and trying to find the right placement that I wanted. And yeah, over and over. And just to start sticking it and lifting it and creating an issue with my foil. So you can see it's not exactly laying out perfectly. Okay, I may find that I want to redo this one because it's not quite laying where I'd hoped. I'm always very picky, and I tend to make a lot of mistakes and redo them over and over. But we'll see how this ends up looking. And if I do decide that it's not good and I want to redo it, it's just as simple as using some alcohol or acetone to rub that design off. Super easy. All right, so I was actually a little disappointed with my first lift because there was a lot of patchiness where my own fault when I was laying it down. I kept touching it and pulling up some of the image. So I went back in with pieces and I kind of filled it back in and it ended up covering it quite nicely. So now I do not feel the need to strip it all off and start it again. And I'm quite happy with that, especially since this part's way down here on the side, which won't be nearly as noticeable when you're wearing it. So now this one, I'm going to go in with this here. Now this one here, I have a big lift in the center, but that's okay because there's nothing there to crinkle and cause an issue. It's an empty space. And I just wanted to get as much of this floral design on there as possible. I love it when it just comes away on its own. And it's so crystal clear, and you know you got every little perfect bit of that image. It's so satisfying. I could almost just do nonstop transfer foils all day long for the satisfying reveal. There, look at that. That turned out very cute. Okay, so those ones were done with the Macart. Now this is the Venalisa transfer foil. Let's see how it does. Yes, it is usually easier to cut these first, but so this Venalisa foil is giving me nothing but trouble. Everything's sliding, it's not sticking. This one is not going to turn out. So maybe that answers that. I'm going to wipe these down and go back over them with my cart. I'm just going to rub that foil away since it did not work out. Maybe I'll play with the Venalisa again at some other point to see what it's like. Okay, now this one's the Macart again. Let's see here. I'll trim this piece out first. So before changing this one over to the Macart, I tried with the Venalisa using a scrap of the foil to see what I could get to stick. And even with this one, I could not get the Venalisa foil one to stay on very well. So I took it off and went with Macart. So when it comes to transfer foils, a lot of times you do have to play with them and figure out what works for that particular one, because you will find that some require longer cure times, shorter cure times, longer cool down times, shorter cool down times. So it is very much a play with it and see what you can come up with to make it work well. I will attempt that with the Venalisa at some point. Definitely much easier now that I've gone and cut it. I'm so obsessed with not wasting my nail products that I feel that when I cut pieces off and that it's like, oh, what's going to happen to the rest of it? I'm going to end up wasting it. And so more often than not, I try doing my foils from the roll and end up wasting more because I have too many mistakes when I should have just cut it in the first place. There we go. That one turned out beautiful. Just beautiful. Okay, Mr. Pinky. Got a couple trouble spots, so I'm going in with my metal tweezers just to really rub that in. I have a feeling that it's because I didn't apply the foil gel there quite as well. All right. So all of our flower foils are on. Now I'm going to go in and do some little extras. So first thing we want to do, if you want to make sure they're going to stick and you're not going to have any issues with lifting and that, you want to go in with a primer of some sort and just give a quick dash over those images. That acts as like a sticky tape. Helps to keep those images sticking to the next layer. That, and if you make sure you do your edges really well, you're going to have less chance of lifting on the edges. Because that's a common thing when you have something that's not just your straight polish that ends up on the edges. You can have a little more issues with lifting. Certainly something that doesn't have to be done this way, but for longevity, you want to do the same thing over stickers or water decals or anything else that is a foreign piece on top of your nails. All right, so we let the primer dry. Next thing, I'm going to go over this with a mat. So here they are out of the light, and I messed up. So this one turned out really, really good. So did this one. But on these three, I got to playing too much with the matte top, spreading it around, and it started affecting the foil and messed up and blurred out all my designs. So I am going to do them again, I guess, because that's what ends up happening when I do nails. I mess things up and I have to do things all over again. All right, I have redone these. They turned out beautiful. The only thing I'm not loving is that this one here, I didn't manage to capture any of the black outline for any of the floral decal. And it's not a big deal, but it kind of throws this one off a little bit because it doesn't have that black outline anywhere. So yeah, just one thing that is going to be a pet peeve for me with my issue with perfectionism. But what we're going to do next now, these have been top coated with a matte top coat. All the nails are okay now and ready to go. I just had to be a lot more careful with what I was doing when I was putting my top coat on. my mat because it was smearing. So now I am going to go in with a no wipe top gel. That's a Luxa Shine. And I'm just going to, busy spilling on it here. I am just going to top coat with Glossy the floral parts and see how that makes it look. I'm hoping it'll stand out really nice, and yeah, just give it that little bit extra. A little bit of extra. Because I'm always about doing a little extra. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to pick up. Gonna have to pick it up. I'm not being super finicky detailed around this. Hopefully, that's the goal. Just to hit the floral spots. Give it that extra oomph. I'm using the Luxa Gloss because it's a thicker top coat than my usual magic gel. So this will, hopefully, the goal is stay in place a little better and not run around on the nail. Whereas my thin ones tend to bleed out. Or just spread a little more across the nail. Luxa is actually going to work well because it tends to has a tendency to pit and separate over things. But I was hoping it wouldn't since I'm doing Luxa over Luxa. So we will hope for the best and cure. I'm not sure if they're going to look better with the florals being glossy or not. They kind of look really nice as a matte, but we'll have to see. And there we go, guys. What do you think? I do really notice that an outline nail sticks out a lot for me. That's just for me. And it's just because of the piece of foil that I used in that particular area, and didn't really notice that it didn't have the black outline, and didn't really realize that it was going to kind of stand out when it was done, but that's okay. I think they turned out really quite beautiful. They were really simple to put together. Now, that being said, this did take me 2.5 hours to put together. I did have a boo-boo to fix, so that was probably an extra, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. But yeah, just for the sake of transparency, it was about 2.5 hours for me to put this together. They turned out quite beautiful. And I don't know, I'm not sure if the glossy and matte is a better idea than just the straight matte. I don't know, you tell me. Do you like the mix, or do you think they actually looked better when they were still just all matte? I'm not sure. But glad to guide you guys along anyway, and I hope you enjoyed that. And the Fiote Laube collection, which I found to be really beautiful, and I'm very excited to be using it again next winter, seeing as how this spring is on the way. So thanks so much, guys. As always, don't you be forgetting to love your nails. Bye-bye.